This episode is brought to you by Goose Juice, the only juice officially endorsed by the goose community. Made with authentic, real goose juice, except no substitutions. When you need juicy, always make it goosey. Another Donna Fart Industries innovation from the makers of Scorpion Crabs.
Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and work our way to 100% fresh. I'm Scott.
And I'm Max, and today we're talking about Space Jam, rated once 35% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now apparently that rating has changed, but we're not going to talk about that. And we're joined today by a very special guest. He's my cousin, he's our artist, and he's also a realtor, Josh Rivera. Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Thanks for jumping in, man.
I'm so excited and honored to finally be on the podcast and to be representing, of course, Space Jam, the Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny, and more importantly, the most famous MJ, Michael Jackson.
That'd be a version I'd watch, too.
That should have happened.
You could do like a karaoke competition with Michael Jackson.
Well, Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan, they did a music video or something together once, right? Like there was something.
Maybe a commercial or something.
Maybe a commercial?
Jam. It was Jam. It ain't too much a jam. It ain't. Don't do. Ain't too much for me. Woo!
Yeah, I remember that.
There it is. You've been mentioned in every episode so far, Josh, so it's good to finally have you actually on board.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Put a voice to the name.
And to the art.
To the art.
Josh, you been watching anything fun?
Yeah, without ruining anything, obviously, spoiler warning, I've been watching the OA. I'm really enjoying that. I'm only a couple episodes in. I'm watching it slowly because I'm watching it with my wife, who's, of course, on the night shift as a nurse. So we're trying to squeeze as many episodes in as we can, but then we realize it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I have to get up in like 5 hours. So then I go to bed.
Yeah, Max, I know, watched it. I haven't gotten past the first half of the first episode yet, but it looks really interesting. So
I like that it has a unique voice of like a team behind it. So it's not like some shows where each episode kind of has a different director or writer voice. This one has like the same unified kind of feel to each episode. So I think it's pretty interesting. My
favorite part about it is that one of the creators' last name is Batman G or something like that.
Yeah.
Every time I die laughing. Check it out.
Man, G.
That's the best endorsement you can get, right?
That's
there.
cool. A lot of times you see those shows go with different, like one showrunner and then a different director for each episode. Like I know House of Cards does that.
Yeah.
But I think House of Cards does a good job of keeping a consistent voice, but some shows don't.
Yeah.
It's almost like House of Cards is a little more spacey.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm nodding disapproval at that
one. Josh, you and I watched Unbreakable.
Yes, we had so much fun watching that. It was so silly.
M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable, which I had never seen, and you were a very big fan of. Not until we watched it.
Wow. I know you're a fan, so that's why I was kind of shocked that you'd never seen it.
No. Yeah, it just had never come up.
It's one of those movies that I loved when it came out. I watched it with so many different people, and then I took a break from it. And every time I wanted to watch it again, every scene would flash through my head. So it's been a good probably 8 years since I saw it. So I saw it fresh again through Scott's eyes, and I was so excited.
It
was excellent.
I haven't seen it since it came out, and I liked it a lot when I saw it, but
I think it ages really well. I mean, I didn't see it back when it came out in 2000, but it held up fine today. There's a lot of really cool camera shots that they did, like M. Night Shyamalan did on the train, the very first scene. Instead of just doing like a reverse shot for their conversation, the camera's on the seat in front of them and just pans from between them, so you never get a full picture, and it makes it super, super funky, and I really like that. And I loved the ending. The way that it almost seems, it's like
spoiler alert.
Yeah, here be spoilers for this 17-year-old movie. The way that it seems almost anticlimactic that Bruce Willis's character just turned Samuel L. Jackson's character in. There's not like a big showdown, but that's just how it would have been, I feel like. And it's within character for Bruce Willis, so I really liked it.
Yeah. Did you like Mr. Glass?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I liked his whole background. I mean, it made sense. And I did not see the twist coming. Josh was surprised that I didn't see it coming.
I was expecting you to
The twist
make a
being
guess.
that he's the villain who's kind of organized everything.
Yeah, that he had caused all those accidents he had mentioned earlier to try and find his, I don't know, opposite. Yeah, it shocked me. It floored me. Sixth Sense level where I just didn't see it coming, and I never see the twist coming because I just don't look for it that badly. I just get into the moment of the movie, and I don't look forward like that.
Well, at the time, this followed up The Sixth Sense, so people knew him as, he made The Sixth Sense. It had that big twist at the end, and so this follows that one up. So I wasn't thinking he was going to be the twist guy when it came to his movies.
Yeah, I remember that. It wasn't like at the time he wasn't the twist guy. He just made The Sixth Sense. So it was pretty interesting to see.
I was so excited that Samuel L. Jackson was going to be his Alfred. That's what he kind of made it seem to be. Yeah. So when he became, spoiler alert, the villain, it was just, I was floored. I loved it. We freaked out.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really cool. I have a theory about M. Night Shyamalan. I'm a well-spoken Shyamalan fan, but I have this theory, and I think I've mentioned it to Max before, about how like his reputation and social media have been a part of the reason that the second half of his catalog of movies have been so horrible, because everybody looks for it and spoils the twists and stuff. That's part of my theory. Because, I mean, like you said, when Unbreakable came out, he wasn't the twist guy. He just did Sixth Sense, so the twist was still fresh then. Yeah. And even Signs was one of his earlier movies. But then, like, The Village and Lady in the Water and stuff. Granted, a lot of those movies are just straight trash, but I think the twist thing kind of became bigger than him and maybe ruined some of the movies, at least a little bit.
I'll say I think there's this thing with certain directors where sometimes they embrace the like perception of themselves too hard. Like there's a couple Wes Anderson films I'm not crazy about. They're good, they're okay, but they're just not my favorite films, and it's because he's kind of like, I mean, he's towing the line of what he does, I guess, and not doing it either well enough in a quality way, or just it's kind of almost like he's parodying himself. And then you see stuff like the latest one he had that was really good.
Moonrise Kingdom?
The one right after
the Grand Budapest
Grand
Hotel.
Budapest. I really loved Grand Budapest. I thought it was a great film, and it was like he embraced everything that he's known for, but also made it good. And I feel like rumors are this new M. Night movie it's getting pretty good ratings so far.
Yeah, Split.
And it's like, well, maybe he embraced what he does that's good and brought in like actual good filmmaking around it again, because he has an eye for talent, and he has a very distinct voice. I mean, when you see his films, you know it's an M. Night Shyamalan film, and that's a good thing, I think.
I agree.
Scott made me watch the preview for Split because I didn't know about it right before we watched Unbreakable. He was like, "Have you heard about Split? M. Night's new movie?" I was like, "No," and I was not interested. I was not interested in all. And then I saw James McAvoy, Mr. Professor X himself, and I was like, I could watch this silliness with someone.
It looks like it'll either be hilarious and fun in a good way, or hilarious and fun in a bad way, but I'm okay with that. If it's either one, I'll probably enjoy the film.
Yeah, we should all go together.
I've been all aboard the M. Night Renaissance train here, his recovery. Express. I'm the conductor of that train.
Choo-choo.
That's right. So I'm all aboard Split. Let's get M. Night back in the spotlight.
I think I'll be on the caboose of that train.
Yeah, you will.
I'll take the
goose caboose.
the free ticket that's handed to me, and I'll just jump on. So
there's no free rides on the M. Night train. You gotta buy in.
Scott, you're handing them out though. You bought all the tickets for people.
Fair enough.
You've got a ticket to ride.
Max, you been watching anything?
Yeah, I watched Big Trouble in Little China, which
good, so bad.
It is. It's Carpenter, John Carpenter, with Kurt Russell, which is always a good combo. This movie is somehow both really, really fun and very stereotypical against Asians, and it bounces between the two. So I don't know how I felt about it. I need to just think about it for a lot longer. But story-wise, it's great storytelling. There's just some things that you can get away with in 1986 that do not fly now. So
back when Kim, what's her name?
Kim Cattrall, the very beautiful Kim Cattrall, is still pretty young in this. So I liked her. She was a very sassy reporter.
Love a sassy reporter.
Yeah, it was good. Or she was a lawyer working with a reporter. I don't remember.
I prefer her in Mannequin. She was at her finest.
Yeah. I've made
we
Scott
watched the Mannequin
the
trailer a dozen times.
I made him watch a music video from it too, but it was just I was trying to convince him. Did we already pass both Mannequin 2 and Mannequin 1?
Yeah. Mannequin 2 on the Move was either a 0 or a 1%, and Mannequin was in the 20s. I believe.
Yeah.
Hollywood.
I was pushing pretty hard for the first Mannequin. That was one of my favorite movies when I was like 5, which the other one was Mac and Me. So I guess Scott made the good call there.
I think we watched Aloha instead of Mannequin.
We should have watched Mannequin then.
Is that like Lilo and Stitch? I have no clue what Aloha is.
Aloha, our viewers probably know because they've been listening, but Aloha is like a Bradley Cooper, Emma Stone, Bill Murray, Oscar bait film.
I'm in.
I'll lend you the Blu-ray.
Yeah, you could keep it.
yeah, just don't give it back.
For some skeet shooting?
Yeah, sure.
Some skeet shooting. I also watched Children of Men.
Oh,
so good. One of your favorites, isn't it?
Yeah. It's always whenever people somebody asked me this past week at work, "Hey, what's your favorite movie?" And I'm like, I have 50 favorite movies, so we got to work on that. But I usually say Children of Men just because it's so good. It's been like 10 years since that film came out, and it feels even more relevant today.
It's so good. I feel like we mention Children of Men all the time on the podcast because whenever I want to compare these shitty movies to a good movie, I'm like, just look at how Children of Men did it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just they do everything right in the film that you should do. The worst thing you could say about the movie is that baby, that CG, doesn't look great. But now that I look at it 10 years later, I'm like, it looks pretty good for 10 years ago CG.
Oh. Plus, you can compare it now to American Sniper, who used that obvious doll.
Exactly.
And it's like, hey, Children of Men, that's not even that bad.
Yeah. Just CG the baby.
Yeah. Oh, God. I need to watch it again now because it's been a couple of years since I watched it.
So the CG baby wasn't like slimy enough like a real baby? Is that the deal? They didn't slather it up with some KY or whatever?
It was pretty slimy. I think it just moved to CG. I don't remember what I hated about it when I first saw it because I loved the entire film except that stuck out to me. But then I think it was just like, you can tell it's a CG baby. But nowadays you're just like, oh yeah, that's CG. Who cares? Like whatever. At least you tried. And
similar to the back of Professor Quirrell's head in the Harry Potter #1.
Yeah, when I first saw that, I thought it looked terrible, and then now I look at it, I'm like, whatever. That's like 2001. Yeah. It's not that bad. So
yeah.
Do you think part of the reason for that is now there's such like an overabundance of CG in every movie, and it's often needless?
Well, yeah.
But now when these little things aren't great CG, it's like at least the rest of your movie's practical.
Yeah, like if something like Age of Ultron or even Winter Soldier, one of these big movies has, 5 seconds of bad CG, I'm going to notice that and be angry about it because they had a budget bigger than
True.
more money than the three of us will ever see combined, and they can make a better looking CG compared to like 10 years ago when it's like, okay, people are still figuring this out.
Yeah.
Budgets weren't, they were big, but they weren't that big, so.
Because they weren't sure if it was going to do well or not, so.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like with the prequels, actually, something we also mentioned way too much. Going back, some of that CG that I hated back in the day, I'm like, it's still pretty bad, but it's pretty good for the time. So.
I feel like the Phantom Menace kind of hits. It's not great CG at all, but now it's almost campy because of how bad it was. Like on Naboo, that war at the end where those like big blue marbles are rolling around.
Yeah.
Like that's not good CG, but it's kind of fun now.
It's on the Windows 98 like desktop screen.
Yeah.
First of all, Scott, those things are called boomers. Okay.
Excuse
just for
me.
future reference.
Are they boomers or are they boombers or something? Aren't they like bombads?
Bombad is when something's bad. Boomers is you solo gata da boomer.
You should do the whole episode as a Gungan.
But don't.
Mr. Like condition.
I shut up the Phantom Menace. We walked right into it.
I actually really love the Phantom Menace. It's horrible, but it's probably one of my favorite. It was the second DVD I ever owned. So let's just say I watched it all the time.
Do you like it because it has a very comical space bunny in it?
Yes, and I'm all about space bunnies. Here we go.
This is it.
Like Space Jam.
Welcome to the Space Jam.
It's podcast magic.
That's how we do it.
Max, what's the plot synopsis for Space Jam?
In a desperate attempt to win a basketball game and earn their freedom, the Looney Tunes seek the aid of retired basketball champion Michael Jordan.
Beautiful.
What was our reasoning for Space Jam?
Well, wasn't 2016 the 20-year anniversary of Space Jam? Because I know it came back to theaters.
Yeah, it was.
So that's one reason.
20 years. Somebody, one of our listeners could have been conceived to Space Jam. Never mind. That's weird. Go on.
Wow. In the theater?
That famous Space Jam baby boom.
Yeah. It always starts off with the popcorn box.
Been there. It's a cult classic.
It is.
You can say now, especially for people our age who were young when it came out. It's Looney Tunes. It's basketball stars. It's ridiculous.
All those you're not a 90s kids memes. Like, you're not a 90s kid unless you drank, this or did this. It's like, if you love Space Jam.
Yeah. On the BuzzFeed, you're not a 90s kid article. Like, number 1 or 2 is you love Space Jam.
Yeah.
See, I'm a little bit older than you guys, so I was 15 when this came out. So I didn't get around to seeing it until, probably, I would say about 5 years ago, I finally watched it. And I was like, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. I enjoyed it.
Having not
so you were like on that upper threshold.
Having not seen it for 20 years, I was like, wow, this isn't as bad as I thought it would be. Rewatching it, it moved super fast.
We were shocked at how fast it flowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the middle of the climactic game, I'm like, Scott, is there another game? And he's like, this is it, man.
That's exactly what I thought. I was watching it and I was like, wow, this is just, I expected to be a lot of plot issues, a lot of conflict, and it was really just a silly game of basketball with the Looney Tunes.
I have one issue with the plot, and that's it. And other than that, it just, not a lot happens. It just builds up to this one silly game, but it's Space Jam. You're not expecting twists and turns.
They made a movie that kids sit through and watch, which is cool.
Yeah, for sure. This is kind of a double dip, though. It was produced by Ivan Reitman, who directed Twins, our last episode movie.
Ooh.
And the head villain, is played by Danny DeVito, who's also
voiced.
Yeah,
he's always good, no matter what he's in.
Always. Yep. From his first line, I was like, Scott, it's Danny DeVito. So
he plays Swackhammer, the boss of Moron Mountain.
I always associate Danny DeVito with your father, Max, for some reason.
I think I announced that last episode that watching Twins was weird because it's just my dad doing stuff. So he's very similar. He's fringe class.
One of my favorite things about this movie is of the actors that are in it. Wayne Knight plays Stan, MJ's sidekick, but everybody else just plays themselves.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan plays himself. Bill Murray plays himself. Larry Bird plays himself. All the NBA guys play themselves. So only one person
plays himself.
Daffy Duck played himself. Only one person was a character.
Michael Jordan's family, his wife and kids, were based off his wife and kids, but they were not. They weren't played by them. It was just actors playing his wife and kids
with the same name.
Same names, yeah. So
the one thing that I loved about this is I forgot that he used to play for North Carolina. So when I first watched this, I was like, "That's right." We obviously grew up in South Carolina, so I felt so much pride that
Carolina
about
pride.
Carolina pride, like the sausages.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I wonder if young MJ actually did play on a grass court in his backyard and say, "I want to play for North Carolina." He might have, because I think he grew up in the Carolina area.
He did.
There you go.
I just wonder if his dad was that like loving and just like, you'll do it one day, son.
That's a fine school. Fine school.
Because that seems very much like the parenting like we received from like the boomer generation of just being like, you could do whatever you want, like if you put your mind to it. I think more old school were tougher. Like he'd be like, well, you better be better at basketball then. I don't know. I'm just shooting off the hip
keep
here.
Practicing.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's famous stories about Jordan's father. Sometimes you hear that in an athlete's past, but I don't think there's much to that. The big stories about like Jordan's background was the first time he tried out for his basketball team, he didn't make the team. So that was one of his big stepping stones that he had to cross. But then when he got to North Carolina, his star had fully risen, and he was drafted and already presumed to be one of the best players to come out of the draft and everything. So he was kind of a star as soon as he stepped on in Chapel Hill.
Well, before we get too deep into this, there were some other films we skipped over that we did not pick
some good
for
ones
this week. Yeah. A good variety here. One of them was, which this was the other contender for this week, which was also a sports-themed kid movie from the 90s, Angels in the Outfield.
Yes, Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
You got JGL.
Right. I would have loved to.
What's his name? Doc.
Danny Glover.
Danny Glover and Christopher
Lloyd.
Thank you, Christopher Lloyd.
I would have loved to have watched Angels in the Outfield just for the line that his stepdad says. It's like, I'll come back when the Angels win the pennant. Like, it's just such an asshole thing to say.
Oh yeah.
They should have did Devils in the Dugout, because I would have watched that instead.
Oh hell yeah, that's the grown-up version where JGL has like a drinking problem.
Slide into home base.
Gosh. Then we could have watched Mona Lisa Smile.
No, thank you.
Which I think has Maggie Gyllenhaal and what's her face?
10 Things I Hate About You. Julia Stiles, doesn't she?
I think Julia Stiles is in it, and Pretty Woman. Why are my names all bad today?
Are you talking about Jennifer Rogers? No.
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts.
Jennifer Rogers.
That's a friend of mine from high school.
And then
shout out.
National Treasure, Book of Secrets, which is the sequel, and we have a no sequels rule so far.
Gotcha. Never seen National Treasure. What am I missing?
What? Oh, National Treasure is amazing. There's no way I'm going to let us not watch National Treasure on this podcast, because I fucking love National Treasure.
The first one's a good, fun film. The second one is really dumb, but if you get rid of all suspension of disbelief, it's a fun film.
Gotcha. Do we find out why the Philly Bell was cracked?
I don't think so.
It's called the Philly Bell?
No, it's not.
No, it's definitely not. The Liberty Bell.
As of today, it's the Philly Bell.
I think in the third film we're going to find out about that Philly Bell.
Philly Bell. Sounds like a delicious cheese.
Species. We could have watched.
Oh, that one's
an alien movie?
That's an alien one where isn't that the sexy lady?
The sexy lady,
it's a sexy alien lady killing dudes and people.
She's spliced with alien DNA.
Yeah.
That's also the plot of Men in Black 2.
This one probably has boobs in it as opposed to Men in Black 2, so.
Yeah. So Species wins.
Spies Like Us, which I think is a comedy film.
Dan Aykroyd.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Super Troopers, which is also a comedy film.
It's like a cult classic too.
It is. They have a sequel on the way, I believe. That they fundraised.
Yeah, I think did it get kickstarted?
Yeah. It got kickstarted.
The Broken Lizard crew.
Broken Lizards, yeah.
Yeah.
Super Troopers is funny, but The Counselor, which I don't remember what that is.
No clue.
The Room,
is that the Cameron Diaz one? Sorry.
It might be. Honestly. The Room, which is a cult classic.
The Room is famously bad. There's no way it deserves a 35%. The only reason it's this high is out of irony.
Yeah, probably.
I'm sure of it.
That's not the one with Jennifer Lopez, is it?
No, that's The Cell.
The Room is Tommy Wiseau is like the director. It's very famous for how horrible it is. is. Yeah. I think James Franco is making a movie about the making of The Room where he's going to play Tommy Wiseau.
And then The Waterboy, which is another 90s sports movie.
That's another Adam Sandler movie.
My favorite thing about The Waterboy is that sometime during the late 90s, mid to late 90s, whenever it came out, I think it was my cousin Josh pointed out to me that the poster did not have his feet in it and how big the bucket is. So he has pants that just go into the grass and there's no shoes, no feet. They just kind of vanish. And then the bucket he's holding is like half the size of his body. It's really weird, but
yeah, that was 98, I believe, because I was still working at the local theater back in the day, the Regal 10.
The Regal 10. So Josh pointed that out to me, and that's what always has stuck with me about The Waterboy. And then our final selection was The Lake House.
Lake House, a favorite in the Scoots household. I think it's one of my mom's favorite movies. I know she's watched it at least 50 times. My dad loves it. He'll get mad whenever my mom puts it on because she's seen it so many times, and then he'll talk about how it's powered by U.S. mail and how magical U.S. mail is. So
that's not the one with Nicole Kidman and the fake nose when she walks into the water?
I don't know what that is. The Lake House is Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves, and I believe they send letters to each other through time because they lived in that house at separate eras or something along those lines. I haven't actually seen it.
Josh, can you explain what movie you were just talking about?
I think she's Virginia Woolf or something like that, and she drowns herself at a lake. She has a big fake nose.
The Hours or something?
Yeah, there we go.
It sounded really weird without the context. Where she wears a fake nose and walks into a lake.
It did.
Oh, but yeah, so we chose Space Jam.
Welcome to the Space Jam.
It's a good line. There's a lot of pretty good movies on that line, but Space Jam I think is the natural choice. Even though, as it turns out, it's not even actually 35%. Let me say this, and I don't know who to blame for this, Google or Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, but you can go to Google and it'll show you a Rotten Tomatoes percent for a movie. And then when you go to Rotten Tomatoes, it shows you a different percent for the movie. And I have no idea why.
So one of my favorite things about Space Jam is that, Max, you yourself always quote this movie. For years, you've always quoted the Bill Murray line.
Yeah, where he's like, I don't play defense.
Always.
And he says the quote twice in the movie, too, which I did not remember.
Yeah.
So, and
he does?
Yeah, he says it in the beginning. He's just like, when he's talking about trying out, he says it to MJ just like very subtly. He's like, I can't do defense. Like, I don't play defense. And then at the very end, when he's making the plan, he says it again. And then that's why they switch to MJ's plan.
Yeah. Bill Murray was also in this game for 10 seconds of the game. He was in for one play. I just love that it's so minor.
Yeah, he has a really good role in this movie because it's fun. Everything he says is funny.
Yeah.
He has great delivery. He has a line randomly where somebody's like, Daffy asks him towards the end, like, how did you get here? And Bill just says, the producer's a friend of mine, which the producer actually was a friend of his. So it's just out there. I mean, I think Bill Murray's there for the parents to stay engaged somewhat.
Yeah.
But
he loves NBA, so
Yeah, like
he loves sports.
It was well played on their part. Whoever, I guess Reitman was just like put Bill Murray in here.
Yeah.
I do love that he was wearing he wore the jersey, but then he had the T-shirt underneath it, which always just makes me think of like a little girl going to swim in her bathing suit with a T-shirt on because her dad won't want her to be seen by other people. It's just like weird. Like, does he shave his armpits? Does he not?
Yeah.
That's that YMCA basketball player style.
It's like when you go to the beach and you don't want to take your shirt off because you're not in shape. That's what that is.
Yeah, so you say you're protecting yourself from the sun.
You're allergic.
Yeah.
Bill Murray was the funniest part of this movie.
Oh, for sure.
I also love Larry Bird, who's probably one of the top 10 NBA players of all time. He's in this movie for legitimately 1 minute. He's golfing with them, and then he's just at the end of the movie there, too, at Michael Jordan's return game. And I would think if you have access to Larry Bird, you involve him in the plot, you know? MJ should just be like, oh, well, we're going to need some more help since these guys are so big. And then you get Larry Bird to come out of retirement. He was a very famous player. But it's just funny that he's only in it for a second.
I don't think he would have wanted to go underground to Looney Tunes land. So, you know.
Well, one of my favorite or one of the biggest plot holes in the movie, in my opinion, but it's also hilarious, is that nobody cares when MJ gets sucked into that golf hole. Like, there's no reaction by anyone except Stan.
Yeah.
But when Bill Murray and Larry Bird walk up to the hole after MJ got sucked into it, Larry's just like, I hope that doesn't happen to me, and then just walks away. It's so stupid.
I guess they were like, just like, well, he sucks at baseball, so I mean, he's just vanished. Let's not question it.
Yeah. Nobody reacts to anything in this movie appropriately. When Michael Jordan disappears, like, nobody does anything. Like, his family all just went to bed that night, and then when Daffy and Bugs show up, the kids are like, oh, that's where he is, okay. A UFO flies over the Birmingham Barons Stadium, and nobody says anything. It just lands on the field, it's just like, oh, okay. Oh, that's Stan and Michael Jordan. Like, it's so dumb. I love it. It's so stupid.
It doesn't ask forgiveness for any of the dumbness that it does.
No, it just doesn't. And the fact that the Looney Tunes were involved kind of lets you get away with some of it.
Yeah, and
which is perfect.
One thing I like is when MJ does get sucked into Toonland, he has a very just non-reactive reaction, which I think part of that is that he's not an actor, but he's just like, okay, and he's like Bugs Bunny, and it's just flatlining everything he says, and Bugs is there being Bugs, you know. It's funny. It's just like they kind of lied to him also about the game, which is weird. Because they're just like,
what was the line?
They're like, we got to fight these little aliens in basketball and beat these little aliens. They keep saying little aliens. So when they show up as the Monstars, he's like, little aliens. Like, it was
remember. Oh, wait. Did he?
They became the Monstars.
They called him after they turned into the Monstars.
Yeah, so like they knew. Right. So, which I like that on their part. I like the Looney Tunes were just like, let's lie to Michael Jordan, whatever.
I like how MJ also by the end of the movie is so invested in these Looney Tunes that he offers to give himself up for slavery at the end.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, man. All right, so we talked about how this is kind of a cult classic, but it also did very well at the box office.
Extremely
I couldn't
well.
find a really good number on the budget, but Wikipedia reports it at 80 million, which seems pretty high, but with all the NBA players and stuff, they probably had to pay him a lot. But it opened at 27.5 million, which is great. It won its weekend. I looked and there was nothing major out. The 20th week of Independence Day was still in the top 10. So that should show you how theaters were doing at that point. But its total domestic run was 90.4 million, which is number 738 of all time. And then worldwide, it made another 150 million. So it was a great success.
Well, go ahead.
They have also announced a sequel with LeBron James, or either a sequel or a reboot. I don't know, but LeBron will be in one. It has an IMDb page. There's been some questions from friends of ours of whether or not that's official. It's official.
Well, I guess it's official.
Well, we got to talk about the director and his involvement with Michael Jordan, and the whole reason why this movie came about is because I know way too much about this movie, by the way. He was directing Michael Jordan and all of his commercials. You know, they had the whole Nike commercial where they were just like, hey, let's introduce Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan, and let's do this. And because of these commercials, the first commercial was so successful, they went on to continue making other commercials with the Looney Tunes, which then led to this movie being made, which is actually pretty big.
Yeah, it's crazy.
The director also did a number of notable music videos.
Correct.
Including the Way You Make Me Feel.
You knock me off of my feet now, baby.
Dirty Diana.
You don't leave me alone, so take your weight off of me. I know you live at home. All right, that's enough.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of funny that it's such a commercial film. I'm not saying that in a bad way, but it's such a commercial film, and you have like this director who knows how to do commercials and music videos and kind of like capture the eye and keep you interested. So His
the
name
film
is
itself.
Joe Pytka, by the way. Joe Pytka or Pitka.
Yeah, I didn't know how to pronounce that. I always said Pitka.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
The movie itself is essentially a commercial. There's one line where Stan's talking to MJ, and he's like, put on your Nikes, put on your Hanes, put your Wheaties box down, drink a Gatorade, and we'll pick up a Big Mac on the way, which are all things MJ was sponsored by. It just makes me thankful. Oh, he probably directed commercials for all of those.
He did every one of those commercials. Same director.
It makes me thankful that today's massive commercial movies are like the Lego Movie, which is excellent, and this is just so like ham-fisted. Yeah. But I don't even mind it that much.
I mean, if you think about it, this progression, there's the Mac and Me film, there's this, and then Lego Movie. Those are like 3 different tiers, like very introductory, commercialized movie, Mac and Me. It's complete bullshit. There's no story. It's a ripoff of E.T. with McDonald's sponsoring it. Then you have this, which is, huge commercialism with, the biggest athlete at the time with huge cartoon characters and not so subtle lines just here and there. And then now you have like this tongue-in-cheek take on advertising in movies, which is a good, fun film that advertised Legos the entire time. It's cool. It's an interesting progression.
Yeah. Will you guys let me talk for 2 minutes about the NBA players in this movie?
Let me.
Okay, hold on.
You gonna time it, Josh?
Time me.
Okay, let me take off my headphones. I'll be right back.
Damn.
I'll time it. 2 minutes.
All right, let me know when I can start.
All right, and you ready? Take a deep breath. Go.
Charles Barkley is the headliner of the Monstars, who's the round mound of rebound was his nickname. And now he's a big star because he's on NBA on TNT, and he's excellent, and he's hilarious, and he says stupid stuff. I remember he said the women in San Antonio are unattractive because they eat too many churros. He was in this movie, which is awesome. Patrick Ewing is also in this movie. I personally enjoy Patrick Ewing's appearance in the Snickers commercial as Patrick Chewing much better. And Patrick Ewing is notable because he played for the Knicks, and he was a part of the first NBA draft that had the draft lottery, which means instead of the worst team getting the first pick,
we lost you.
And a lot of people think the 85 draft was rigged to give the Knicks the first pick. Larry Johnson is the least notable person in this cast. He was just a pretty good player. He played for an outstanding UNLV college team. He played for the Hornets, multiple-time All-Star, but he doesn't have a distinctive look or anything. That's important because Muggsy Bogues and Sean Bradley are your last 2 Monstars. Muggsy Bogues is the shortest player to ever play in the NBA, and Sean Bradley is the 4th tallest player behind George Muresan and Manute Bol and some other guy who only played 1 game. But neither of them were very accomplished pros. They were never all-stars or anything. They were literally in the movie just for their dimensions. There's also excellent cameos from Vlade Divac on the Lakers. There's a point where they don't want to play because of what's happening to all these NBA players, and it's hilarious. Danny Ainge is in the movie twice. Once in the opening credits montage where he's playing for the Bulls, and another time he's on the Suns when the Knicks are playing them at Madison Square Garden in the first game, and it's hilarious. And then you have Larry Bird.
Keep going.
I still have time? Then you have Larry Bird as well, who is a great Celtic, and he's barely in the movie. We've kind of talked about that, but he should have been in the movie a lot more. They also have someone playing David Stern, the NBA commissioner at the time, but it's not actually David Stern. A lot of people had massive problems with the fact that David Stern wouldn't actually appear in the Space Jam movie. The guy they have playing him looks nothing like him either. And finally, the reason Michael Jordan retired to play baseball is shrouded in mystery. A lot of people believe he was forced to retire to avoid a suspension of the biggest player in the NBA because he had massive gambling debts and was betting on sports games, which was frowned upon in the NBA at the time. There was an investigation going on Michael Jordan's involvement gambling with drug dealers and high-level mob personnel when he retired, and then the next day they dropped the investigation.
I gave you 30 extra because you went crazy with the feedback for a second there. It got choppy, and we missed at least like half a sentence, so I gave you a little bonus there.
Thank you for that boner.
It's not your fault.
I will try not to talk about the NBA for the rest of the episode. So thank you all for indulging me.
That's good.
I checked out, but I enjoyed your enthusiasm. I'll tell you that.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch with with Scott because he's such an NBA fan. So it's almost like I had a live, like, commentary track on NBA the whole time, and it was fun. Just a point of trivia that I told Scott during the watching. I met Muggsy Bogues at a signing.
Name dropper over here.
At a signing at McAllister Square when it was still a mall.
Yes.
And my dad took me, and I don't know what he signed. I don't remember. I lost it shortly thereafter, but but it was fun. It was cool. Yeah, it was one of the few athletes I've met. So
I did love that there were 2 players from the Charlotte Hornets, on the team, which was also made me so happy when I saw that.
Yeah, I don't know why either. Like, they don't explain why those 2. One thing that I think is sort of fun is Muggsy Bogues was easily the best actor of all of these athletes.
For sure.
Like, let's just acknowledge it. Michael Jordan was not very good.
No.
He was very unexpressive, but he's not an actor, so you can't really blame him. But even the other guys, like Charles Barkley's a TV personality now, but he wasn't excellent in this. But Muggsy Bogues had the funniest lines.
I felt like Patrick Ewing had good, like, responses. Like, he responded well to stuff, but he didn't deliver lines that great. But Muggsy Bogues, for sure, like, kind of...
He's got... Yeah. Ewing has a very expressive face.
Yeah.
Think about that. Michael Jordan actually had more screen time than probably all of them, not just in the movie, but from making all these commercials, doing all these endorsements. Mm-hmm. And he was probably so much worse than all these other guys that were only on screen for that much time. So you got to think about that. And
it's not even like a screen, like you said just now, he was on more. So it's not even like we've seen more of Michael Jordan's acting, so we know it's bad. It's legitimately bad. Those other guys were legitimately better as a whole. Even if we saw an entire movie worth of them, they would still they would still be better either way. It's not like the more of them would be worse. It's just he can't act, and that's fine. Nobody expects him to. But
he's not an actor, so.
So I want to touch on 2 points in particular, if I can. First of all, the opening CGI into Moron Mountain, of course, probably looked incredible back in the day. But looking at it now, it was just like it was almost painful. But of course, the cartoon, other world. So I just want to touch base on that one.
Yeah, it's that whole beginning I forgot about because I completely. I mean, the Monstars, you remember them, but I forgot that they were Moron Mountain, like little aliens. That was all just weird to me. I completely wiped it away from my brain. But that's why I was so excited that Danny DeVito was there. But it was weird. It was like a weird CG amusement park.
Yeah. Their whole planet was an amusement park, which is kind of weird too. And nobody liked it. Yeah. Like, they built a planet around an amusement park, and the guests hated it.
I couldn't tell if that was supposed to be like, and I'm guessing that the answer is neither. I couldn't tell if it was supposed to be commentary on, like, just stupid amusement parks of the era that just existed for no reason, or if it was a commentary on how kids are just disinterested in everything. I honestly couldn't tell if it was trying to say either. I think it was just bad either way.
I think it was the disinterestedness is what kind of stuck out to me from that time in the 90s,
Like, it was cool to be disinterested in stuff. But then again, like, the audience of this movie had to be like 10. I mean, that's who they had to be reaching for. So why are you making that commentary? It's just weird.
I didn't see it so much as a commentary. I saw it more as just a plot device to get the reason why they're getting to Earth and stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It's just with these kind of things, there's distinct commentary you're making on purpose, and there's like the commentary that comes with it just from social like reasoning. But and I think it would definitely be more just latent commentary, not something they actively were trying to say.
One thing that I did stand out when they were on Moron Mountain with, of course, Swackhammer, Mr. DeVito, when he's smoking his cigar, that's something that they kind of frown upon about seeing any kind of comic book character, any kind of cartoon, smoking anything. And so just to see that one scene, it kind of shows you the time and the place, which that can be done nowadays, which is silly.
Yeah.
What studio made this? Because I know it wasn't Disney, because they made some
Warner Brothers.
Jokes. I guess it would be Warner Brothers, because it's Looney Tunes. Because Disney has those very hard and fast rules about you can't show smoking and stuff like that, blood. So I wonder if Warner Brothers had different rules, or if it just suited the character, so they went with it.
I mean,
it wasn't.
I feel like Warner Brothers was always a lot more edgy with what they did, cartoon-wise, because, you know, the Looney Tunes are actively always trying to kill each other. Whether or not they show the death is different, but they're violent cartoons. I mean, you got Wile E. Coyote, you got Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd. I mean, every single one. That's kind of what's always been fun about them. Whether or not that actually has an effect on kids, I don't know. But all the way up until about this time period, you could still show some stuff with Looney Tunes. You could still have a little bit of fun compared to like a Disney cartoon where it's a lot more. You could still show stuff, but it's more regulated. So
yeah, there's tongue in cheek with. There was always tongue in cheek with the Looney Tunes from the 30s, and they'd have so much adult humor. There was erection jokes. You know, there was stuff like that that would just nowadays. Wouldn't fly.
No, I mean,
we kind of already started jumping into the plot, but right before they go to Moron Mountain, there's an opening credits scene that's just like clips of Michael Jordan's life and career, and I remember it lasted like 6 minutes long. It was insane.
Yeah. It was good.
It was good, but like I noticed how long it was. It was good. The only time I felt like something was too long in the movie.
I feel like Jordan said like that had to be in there.
Yeah.
I felt like.
Sorry,
buddy.
No, I had nothing. Go ahead.
I felt like for the kids that don't really know who Michael Jordan is, they kind of get to see his whole rise to fame, and it kind of sets it up for them to understand that he's like this amazing player, and he always has been. So
yeah,
I liked it. It actually, when me and Heather, my wife, were watching it, it was very entertaining just because she was like, "Oh, I didn't know he played for North Carolina and all this other stuff." So it was exciting.
So she was the target audience.
Yeah, sure.
Well, the plot here is super thin, so I don't know if we should get lost in the details how we normally do, but basically, I guess the little aliens, they pitch that they should get the Looney Tunes to come to their amusement park. That's the idea.
Yeah, to be more entertaining.
Yeah, and that's like a B plot that we see, as well as I guess that might be the A plot, and Jordan's the B plot. I really can't tell. But we're cutting between that and Jordan working on his baseball game, which isn't good. But everyone's super nice to him, super happy to see him because he's Michael Jordan. So you can give the details on this if you want, Scott. But basically, he can't play baseball, and everyone's like, "Good job, Mike. Keep it up, Mike." And he's just like, you can tell he's over it.
Yeah, you can tell he doesn't like being coddled. He's such a competitive person. He's famous for how competitive he is. And he's definitely being like, he strikes out in the at-bat that they show, and he goes back to the dugout, and all his teammates were like, "Oh, those were tough pitches. Like, the ump's not helping you out. Like, really good cuts out there and stuff like that." And he hates it.
Yeah.
And he wasn't a good baseball player. It's rare that an athlete can transfer to a different sport like that, which is what makes it so amazing when people like Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson would do it. And I mean, MJ was obviously a phenomenal basketball player, but he couldn't make the cut. We're kind of seeing that now with Tim Tebow, which you mentioned, Max, which I loved. But Tim Tebow kind of flamed out of the NFL. And then this September, that's right. This September, he signed on with the Mets minor league team, and ESPN loves it because it's a story, but he's doing horrible. So it's not easy to make that transition, and I guess that's part of the plot, is that he's not doing that, and that he still loves basketball and stuff.
Yeah.
So Michael Jordan, playing on the minor league team, he actually came to Greenville, and they played the Greenville Braves. I don't know if you remember this, Max.
Scott was actually telling me about it while we watched.
Okay, because we tried to get tickets, me, my cousin Brett, and my aunt. We were trying to get tickets. I don't remember if we went. I know it was sold out. So when I talked to Brett about this yesterday, he said, "Just tell everybody that we went." And I was like, "Okay, I'm okay with that."
That's funny.
God. You got to imagine it was good for minor league baseball business. I mean, MJ game wouldn't sell out?
Yeah. I mean, shit, that had to be like the best marketing they've ever had.
Yeah. But so the Monstars go to Looney Tune land, and they say, "Hey, like, come back to Moron Mountain. You're our slaves now." And I forget why. Didn't Bugs make up that there was a rule book for how to enslave people?
Yeah.
And he said that the people being enslaved get to choose a competition to earn their freedom or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because these aliens were like 1 foot tall and they were basically big slugs, they chose basketball as their competition.
They have no arms or legs, so Daffy like pulls his arms and legs in and just like suggests, he's like, why don't we do something that you need these for? How about basketball? And everyone's like, yeah, basketball. And so that's how it gets started. So they're like, yeah, let's do the basketball. And then the Monstar aliens, which are still the slug versions of them, are like, cool, basketball, yeah, let's do that. And then do they show them planning, or do they just go and enact their plan?
The Monstars?
Yeah.
They were like, yeah, let's do basketball. And then after they were like, what's basketball? And they were either shown what basketball is, or they like worked with Swackhammer. And then they got the plan to do the 5 aliens in a trench coat and go to Madison Square Garden and steal people's powers.
Yeah.
And sit next to Homer's voice, Dan
Castellaneta.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Patricia Heaton from Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both
such
got
a
excited.
random cameo.
Scott was like, that's Patricia Heaton from Everybody Loves Raymond. I'm like, that's Dan Castellaneta from The Simpsons, and we were both just like stoked about it. So
yeah, it's funny.
How did they end up in this movie?
I guess they're friends with the producer.
Yeah. So then the Monstars steal everyone's powers just by turning into like ooze and jumping inside of them. This is where there should have been a B plot, because this is where the NBA players, after our 5 players get their powers stolen, there's one scene where the NBA players are like, well, I don't want to play anymore because there's some type of bacteria or something. And then there's literally that one scene and then they never touch it again. Yeah. So there should have been like a B plot there somehow. But the B plot with the NBA players becomes they don't know why they can't play basketball anymore. This is where we get that classic song, Basketball Jones, when Charles Barkley goes to the street court and gets beaten by a bunch of high school girls. But there's just like a montage of them talking to hypnotists, I think, and like getting their fortunes told and going to doctors and stuff. It's all ridiculous. Therapists.
Just to clear the record, Basketball Jones was a song by Barry White and Chris Rock, for our audiences to know. And it's fucking amazing. And
Chris,
if you watch the portion that Scott just mentioned with the Charles Barkley and the girls, it's even better, but the song itself is amazing too.
Chris Rock does like the spoken word portion of it, and then Barry White does the singing, and it's so good.
Basketball Jones.
That's we should just take a little aside here and mention the soundtrack. It's awesome.
Amazing.
R. Kelly's I Believe I Can Fly is on it. You have Seal, Fly Like an Eagle. Then you have Hit 'em High, parentheses, the Monstars anthem, which I was stoked about because I had forgot about the song. And I think Scott saw me like visibly freak out with excitement about it once I realized what it was. It's Busta Rhymes, Coolio, LL Cool J, Method Man, and Be Real. And it's just this awesome, stupid 90s rap song. And we watched the music video, and I was just like screaming. I was so excited. So then you have like I Turn to You by All for One and For You I Will by Monica, as well as the movie's title theme song performed by the Quad City DJs. So this was like the ultimate like 8th grade dance record ever in the 90s. So
For You I Will.
I was gonna say, don't forget all the jock jams that were in this too.
Yeah, there were plenty of jock jams in the background too. So, but yeah, so let's go back to the plot real quick.
It needed to be said because the soundtrack's amazing.
Yeah.
This is where we have MJ after the Monstars kind of gather up their powers. They go back to practice in Looney Tunes land, and they all touch the basketball, and they turn into these hulking monsters, and they're just destroying the court and everything. So Bugs and company know they need to do something.
Michael Jordan, he's playing golf at this point, right?
Yes.
Yeah, with Wayne Knight, Larry Bird, and Bill Murray, of course.
Yeah. And they're all just razzing each other. It's pretty fun. It's a fun scene because Bill Murray is here, so him and Larry Bird just kind of carry it.
Yeah.
And Wayne Knight he's pretty good too. But it's just fun banter between them. Like I said, it's the first time that Bill Murray mentions trying out. He's like, hey, with all these players getting sick all of a sudden, maybe I finally have a shot. And so it's just funny. But this is where we see the golf thing happen, and then, of course, this is where MJ leaves us.
Yep. They use a huge magnet to pull MJ's ball into the hole for a hole-in-one. And then when he reaches down to pick it up, they suck him down into the hole. And this is where Larry Bird and Bill Murray are hilariously not concerned at all.
You guys didn't point out why Wayne Knight is there. He's by the minor league team. They just assign him to take care of Michael Jordan.
Oh
basically.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yep.
He's like.
Is he a publicist?
He just handles. He's just basically taking care of anything that he needs, including being his caddy.
Oh yeah, so he's like a publicist and an assistant. His name is Stanley Podolak in the movie. So
he looks like a Stanley Podolak.
It's true. So yeah, from here we go to Toonland. Michael gets sucked into the golf hole, whatever you call it, but
what you call it?
And he ends up there. He, like I said, he wasn't really that shocked to see Looney Tunes talking to him. I guess by this point it's just like, who cares? You're Michael Jordan. You've probably seen some weird stuff by this point in your life, but
maybe he just didn't want to go back to his baseball career since it was failing.
But then he was like, I don't play.
He's like, I'll just live in Toon World.
But I would buy that. But he's like, I don't play basketball anymore, guys. And they're all like, yeah, right. And like the Tunes start burning him really hard for it, which was weird.
Yeah, like, but you suck at baseball, so.
Well, they decided to do this whole physical on him, and they put him in the chair. They start looking at his ears, do all these weird, of course, loony things to him, which he's just barely reacting to, which is horrible.
I remember there was a paper clip inside his brain.
Oh yeah.
Because they did the ear exam and they did like a look straight through, and you saw Daffy on the other side, but there was a paper clip in there, which is super weird.
Bugs on the other side. Excuse me.
Yeah, Bugs performing the exam. I honestly, it's been so long since I watched Looney Tunes that I loved all the Looney Tunes little gags and the background things that all the characters would be doing that shows their characterization. That was the best part of the movie for me because it's just fun. I mean, whatever way you cut it.
I did mention to you that I prefer the more older portrayals of Daffy Duck. I feel like towards the late 80s and early 90s, they turned him kind of just to, I don't know, kind of like a sarcastic sidekick to Bugs when he used to be a lot crazier.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do prefer the older Daffy Duck portrayals.
The zany Daffy.
Yeah, very
Duck.
zany. Like, exactly. Like, he was literally insane. So Bugs was like, he's funny and insane while being funny and, loony. But Daffy was just always like unhinged kind of. So.
Yeah.
When you think about Bugs Bunny, you think about that he's a nice guy until he's provoked, and he's always provoked. And then once he's provoked, he's off his hinges and he's doing whatever he can to drive that person insane or possibly kill that person.
Exactly. Yeah. But with Daffy, it was like, as soon as you met Daffy, he was a loose cannon. And somewhere in, I guess, the late 80s, early 90s, they kind of shifted when they tried to bring Looney Tunes back hardcore. They kind of made
it. It was the Chuck Jones stuff with the rabbit season, duck season.
Yeah.
That he started going, against each other, his foil.
They started shifting it. Yeah. And it just, I do like both of them in this, but I feel my heart always goes to like the older portrayals. So
Daffy was super strange in this movie. He kind of felt like the Carrot Top of the Looney Tunes because everything he did was like a ridiculous costume and stuff like that. Like, remember when they're trying on the uniforms and he does the runway show with like 9 different costumes?
Yeah.
It was funny, but it was just he was super strange.
He turned into
and he didn't really
Dennis
play
Rodman.
basketball.
Yeah,
he started,
did Dennis
but he didn't
Rodman
do anything
at the very
else.
end. So
they ended it with Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
Almost.
He did do Dennis Rodman.
Yeah,
they probably didn't have his permission, so they were like, we could just kind of spoof him a little bit.
Yeah. That's fair. I believe that.
So after the physical, they start practicing, and MJ's still wearing his golf cleats, which I didn't realize at first, but that's why when he steps and he like picks up the wood paneling in the gym. This was after the spit shine gag, where all of the Looney Tunes just start spitting to clean everything up.
Fresh.
That's when I jokingly said to Scott, Looney Tunes Bukkake.
But this is the last time that the Tunes go to the real world here is when MJ tells Daffy and Bugs to go get his gym clothes, his old North Carolina clothes and shoes and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a funny moment, I think, when they go back to Jordan's house.
Yeah,
that's the best part to me.
There's some good moments there. The kids were totally weird though.
Yeah.
So like they sneak into the house.
Again, nobody's concerned that Michael didn't come back home.
Yeah.
That's one.
it's Daffy and Bugs, and Bugs is like, let's go left, and Daffy's like, let's go right, which was funny. I mean, it's good. It's good rivalry between them, and so Daffy goes right and ends up in the bulldog's house. The bulldog named Charles.
Charles the bulldog.
And he gets attacked by Charles.
Barkley.
Yeah. Bugs goes inside the house, which I was like, man, Bugs is kind of a jerk because he just like messed up their floor.
Yeah, he's burrowing through the ground.
Yeah. So he just shows up.
He should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque.
Nice. But so he goes in, and he's trying to find all this stuff, and I think he looks in one of the rooms that the daughter's sleeping in.
Mm-hmm.
And she like
they're both in there. They're both inside by that point because they're talking to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they see her. She sees them. At first, they think she's they think she's asleep, but she actually like notices them and follows them.
Yeah.
And then she gets the siblings, and the siblings, all of them watch as they gather his stuff, his shoes, his shorts, his North Carolina shorts that he's worn under all of his outfits in every game.
I wonder if that's
ridiculous. True. There's no way it's true. Why would he wear 2 pairs of athletic shorts?
To hide that bulge.
Why would you want to hide it?
But yeah, so we see all this going on. I think the kids talk to him at one point, right? Well, no, the kids talk to him.
Yeah,
because,
they come up to him and
they open the closet, and for some reason, Charles, the bulldog, is in the closet for no explanation, and he just jumps out.
He's got the shorts in his mouth, doesn't he?
Yeah, and so they're fighting for the shorts, and then the kids come up and they stop Charles, and they're like, what do they say to him? Do they say something about their dad? The oldest one says something. I don't remember what.
I think Daffy and Bugs are like, we need this for your dad. Like, he's with us. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. And they might even say, like, oh, don't tell anyone. And the kids are like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they just leave.
Yeah. So then we have the first training session back in Toonland. And this is where we're introduced to the very famous Lola Bunny. Miss Lola.
She's such a babe.
The best part is she shows up to this practice. Someone calls her a doll, so she like goes off on Bugs calls her doll, and then they play one-on-one, and she beats him. And then she just leaves.
Yeah.
Like, she's just gone. She's like, I'll just show up at the game.
She doesn't say that, which is even funnier. She's like,
yeah.
she's just
bye.
Yeah, she's like, see you later, and then leaves.
She was easily the best player of the Looney Tunes.
Oh, for sure. I would say she was the only player, really. The rest were just doing weird shit. So yeah, pretty much here it's like we see some B plot of Stan digging the golf course.
Yeah.
And
which was hilarious.
Then we see go on, Josh.
Going back to Lola Bunny, back when this came out, I was very outraged that they didn't put a Babs Bunny that was maybe a little bit older from the Tiny Toon Adventures, because all of a sudden Lola comes out of nowhere, and I remember being 15 and being like, why did they use Babs Bunny? What the heck? That's it.
I remember you being.
Did they use Lola? Did they use Lola again after Space Jam, or was she just in Space Jam?
They used her in the. They used her in the Bugs Bunny Kid cartoon that came out in the early 2000s. So they de-aged all of them and they made them like baby versions. And she was around for, it's basically Muppet Babies with the Looney Tunes. And she was around for that.
Okay.
Which I did watch that too.
Yeah, she's been in that show.
So other than the Stan, other than the Stan B plot, nothing really happens until the game. Right? I'm not missing anything.
We just see the other basketball players trying to figure out what's going on, like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And that continues a couple times. They see a psychologist who asks Patrick Ewing if he has other performance issues.
Oh yeah.
That was great.
And we see a couple things like that where they're all in like, we see that weird tracking shot that I was explaining to you where the three tall guys hit their heads and Muggsy Bogues and the doctor and maybe one of the other players were standing on like a platform, so they weren't actually walking.
Yeah.
You
could tell they weren't walking.
Yeah. So that's like the other thing we saw during this whole next portion, which is the actual basketball game. The game finally starts. Every cartoon ever shows up for it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because there's some rivals. There's some rivals here on the same team.
Yeah.
Like Elmer Fudd and Daffy and Bugs were on the same team. I think that would be a chemistry issue.
We see it at one point when Sylvester and Tweety.
Yes.
Sylvester tries to eat Tweety.
One of the plot points was Sylvester's plan to beat the Monstars. They were talking about how they're going to do this whole plan, and then his whole focus is just eating Tweety Bird.
Yeah.
It was probably a highlight of the movie, I'll tell you that.
It was pretty funny. Because it just derails the game pretty much for seconds. There's some other weird stuff that happens during this game. We do see Foghorn Leghorn explode.
Oh, yeah.
Or burn up or something?
Yeah, he gets burned alive.
Yeah, from like, what was it? Fire breath. From fire breath. That's it.
Fire breath. Yeah, one of them can breathe fire.
They are Monstars.
That's true. I thought it was a good choice to have. I think Marvin the Martian was a good choice to have as the referee because he's the closest thing to an unbiased person they could have because he's both an alien and a Looney Tune.
That's true. So the game here pretty much goes.
But he's also.
Go on.
Sorry, I was gonna say he's also famous for hatching nefarious plots.
He's kind of like you trust your enemy just because there's bigger enemies, I guess. So,
yeah. He's also a horrible ref.
Yeah, for sure. He didn't. There was plenty of calls he should have made.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the game pretty much goes like this: they get destroyed
in the first half.
And then Bugs gives Michael his what is it? His secret.
MJ's
juice?
secret stuff.
Yeah, his secret stuff.
Goose juice.
Yeah, it's goose.
I was about to say goose juice.
So,
which is just water with a label on it that says MJ's secret stuff, and everybody's drinking it and then like flexing real big.
Yeah,
it's a funny scene.
And then they go and they.
Oh, we lost you.
Me or Scott?
Me, probably.
It's Mike. Both of you went. It's Michael's secret stuff, is what it is.
Michael's secret stuff. But yeah, so
because they end up using that for all the. They always reference for the nasty Looney Tunes porn. There's always a bottle of Michael's secret stuff close by as the lubrication. Which is
that
horrible.
True?
Yes. I just looked up Lola Bunny, and that was in the background, and I was like, oh, good Lord.
Thank you, internet porn makers. For
hentai, right?
Everything you do. So
move on.
Yeah.
I want to cut that.
Basically,
no.
The Tunes now play well because they've had the secret juice. And
but everything they do, they don't actually play good basketball. Like at one point, isn't Daffy on a scooter playing?
Yeah, they play the worst basketball you could possibly play. I think there's dynamite on stuff.
Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah,
he uses dynamite on the hoop and on a player.
Yeah.
Just a very violent game.
Yeah. It takes a turn for the worse there. And then
at one point, Swackhammer calls a timeout and tells the Monstars like they can't lose, like get super physical. And this is when MJ ups the stakes and says you have to give the NBA players their powers back if we win, and if we lose, then you can have me as a slave. And so then Swackhammer's like, all right, we have to make sure we win, and they play super physical, basically killing everyone. I remember Tweety was on an iron lung, which was hilarious.
Correct.
And
Foghorn Leghorn
is just a pile of ash with eyes.
No, he was cooked. He was actually like chicken.
Yeah.
That's right. Taz the Tasmanian Devil was like all bandaged up. Someone was in a full body cast too, I think. Maybe Elmer or something. But
no, that was the Vulture.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because he kept looking up at him, and it was funny.
Who ends up being
my Looney Tunes.
Our final lineup here going into Going to the end of the game here.
So they put Wayne Knight in, who immediately gets inflated.
That's right.
And then gets deflated. One interesting point here is that there was like 30 seconds on the clock when he gets inflated. And then by the time he's deflated and put on the stretcher, there's only 10 seconds on the clock. So 20 seconds of game passed as they all just watched him deflate like a balloon. But
that was some of the weirdest. I just got to say real quick, Scott, that was some of the weirdest CG I'd ever seen was inflated Wayne Knight. It made me want to vomit. It was both good and bad. And it was just strange.
It was very, very strange. And didn't they also had flat Wayne Knight, right?
Yeah.
Because he got crushed first and then inflated. The flat was super strange.
Unnerving.
And he went around like a fart, just in the air, like an empty balloon.
Yeah, then he was farting. And everyone was doing like the stinky face.
Yeah.
But I think our final lineup was Michael Jordan, Lola, Bugs, Daffy, and then our surprise fifth player, because they'd have to forfeit if they didn't have a fifth player.
Your boy.
Which, by the way, is not official NBA rules, just for the record. But
it's Toon Squad
your boy,
rules.
It's Toon Squad rules. Your boy, Bill Murray.
He's back.
The producer sent a car.
Dude, it's so funny when he shows up. I mean...
It is so funny. It's hilarious.
This portion was already pretty funny, like we just described, but when he gets in there, it's just even funnier. He starts laying out this whole plan.
Yep.
That's ridiculous. And then
and then MJ's like, we're on defense, and he's like, oh, I don't play defense. Never mind.
So
one of my favorite parts about this moment is MJ's plan was this: steal the ball and give it to me. And it's just like, thanks, coach.
It made me think of there's this old episode, probably the first 3 seasons of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where Will becomes his school's basketball player. Like, he joins the team, and it's Carlton and a bunch of white guys because they're rich kids in Bel-Air. And so the coach's game plan for the rest of the episode is, you get the ball, what do? Pass it to Will. Everyone's instruction was just pass it to Will, pass it to Will, pass it to Will. And then Carlton got really upset about it because he was like, I want to play basketball. So he steals the ball from Will, his own teammate, at one point, and then takes this shot, and it's this huge dramatic shot of the basketball just flying across the court, and then he misses. And that's like the entire episode. It's the whole gag. It's hilarious, but that's what I thought of immediately with this. It would have been weird in this movie because then MJ would have ended up a slave for the Monstars.
On Moron Mountain. One important line happens here. Something happens, I think, to Wayne Knight, and MJ says to Daffy, like, oh, like, that can't be good. And Daffy's like, this is Looney Tunes world. Anything can happen. And then, like, doesn't he get stretched out into, like, a long like, whatever?
Yeah.
That's the winning point right there. He embraces his inner Looney Tune.
Because he's going for the shot, and the Monstars grab him. And so he's, like, not going to make it. There's, like, 3 seconds. So he spends 2 of those seconds just stretching his arm out as long as possible.
Yeah, and he makes, like, a dunk from half court.
It'd have been funny
and that gives them the 1-point win.
If when he landed, he just had, like, one long noodle arm that just was, like, slowly coming back together.
And he had to suck it back up, like, pull his tongue to make his arm come back in.
Yeah. They should have really pulled that gag one step further because it would have been hilarious. So.
Yeah.
But from here, we see everyone excited.
But that's the win for the Toon Squad.
Yeah, they win. They kick Danny DeVito. They tape him to a rocket, the Monstars do, and shoot him off. And then they're like...
Well, yeah, because Swackhammer's being really mean to them.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we're sorry, boss. And then I think MJ or Bugs says to them, like, why are you taking this? You're bigger than him. And they're like, yeah, I guess we are. And then they shoot him off.
And then MJ's like, hey, you made a deal. My friends need their powers back.
And they all touch the basketball, and the powers go back in.
Yeah.
Well, that's towards the end when they're back on Earth.
Well,
but yes. So they take them out of the Monstars that way, too.
Yeah, this is when the Monstars give it up.
Yep. And then MJ hitches a ride. MJ and Wayne Knight hitch a ride with the UFO back to the Birmingham Barons game. And they walk off. I thought it was funny. They did this really dramatic music. And then Wayne Knight's character Stan comes off first. So it was like really anticlimactic. Yeah. Because it's like this epic building music and then Stan.
And then, ladies and gentlemen,
then MJ walks.
Michael Jordan!
And nobody's concerned about this alien craft landing on the field. They're all just excited to see what comes off.
I think they're just relieved that it's Michael Jordan. So.
Yeah. And then we have this is where the players get their powers back.
Yeah.
They're all at a court. I guess MJ called them into a court. And MJ's like, touch this basketball. And they're like, I'm not touching that basketball. They're like, what do you have to lose? You suck.
Yeah. So they do. They get
their powers.
There's 5 of them. And they're like, hey,
yep.
Michael, we need another player. A little 3-on-3.
Yeah.
And he's like, guys, I play baseball. And after just giving them back all of their skills, they're all like, oh, he plays baseball, and just starts razzing them like right there.
Yeah. They're like, oh, what's the matter? You don't have it in you anymore, MJ? And then he's like, I'll show you. And then he joins the NBA again.
Yeah. And our last shot is his comeback game or whatever. And Bill Murray and Larry Bird are sitting there. And that's pretty much the movie.
Bill Murray was like crying. It was funny. He was like, I already had my shot.
Yeah.
He's retired.
He's like, that could have been me, but I'm retiring. So
yeah. It holds up pretty well, I think. Like there aren't any time-based jokes where it's rooting itself in the 90s. It's a pretty timeless movie.
Yeah, I think you could watch it. Any kid should be able to watch it if they're into basketball or not, or into Looney Tunes, or just want to see a kid's movie. I think they'd get enjoyment out of it. I mean, hell,
I just like Looney Tunes, so I'm on board.
Yeah,
I would recommend anybody listening to stay away from Looney Tunes Back in Action with Brendan Fraser and the girl from
Jenna Elfman. Jenna
Elfman, yes.
Yeah. That one looked really bad.
I watched 20 minutes of it. It's horrible.
Who is your guys' favorite non-Bugs or Daffy Looney Tune?
That's tough.
I mean, Taz.
Mine's Foghorn Leghorn.
Can't go wrong with Tasmanian Devil. Of course, he's great. I did really love the Fox show back in the, I would say, mid-90s, Tasmania. That made me love Taz more when he was a teenager.
Yeah,
so
that was pretty good. I liked his dad a lot. Let's see.
Lola's so cute.
There's so many good ones.
Yeah, like I really do. I like Porky Pig because he makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, yes, uncomfortable.
He's so like
I like how he's
mediocre.
Just anxiety.
Yeah, he's anxiety and mediocrity in a character, and it's really funny.
I relate to that.
I do like Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. They're pretty cool. So, I mean, but I've always been like a Daffy kid.
Yeah, and I'm a Bugs guy. I've always loved Bugs, and then Max pointed out to me, unfortunately, that I am Bugs Bunny, and I did not like that. I love hugging people. I love kissing people. I'm the sweetest guy until you provoke me, and then you get my evil side.
What'd you dress up as for Halloween 2 years ago?
2 years ago, I was Bugs Bunny in drag. We had Gender Bender 2015, and I was Bugs Bunny in drag, and my wife was Elmer Fudd.
That's too funny.
Amazing. From a movie standpoint, though, I was surprised at, we kind of commented on it already, but the pacing in this movie is excellent. The only bit that I thought went to, it flies by. We thought it was going to be like a 70-minute movie because it was going so fast, and then we looked it up, and it's at least an hour and 28 minutes.
Yeah. Wow.
I weirdly see different times on Google and IMDb, but it's a full-length movie, and it just flies by.
Yeah, it was like we were halfway through it before we even realized it. So
yeah,
and that's good. That's what you want for a kids movie.
It is. Yeah, and we already mentioned the soundtrack is timeless. I remember having it on cassette.
Wow.
And it'd be a good one to buy again today because, gosh, listening to Basketball Jones again, I Believe I Could Fly, those are just great songs.
You think you can actually find the cassette?
I might be able to. I am recording here from Studio C, and I believe my cassette collection is here, so maybe I'll look it up.
Ooh.
Space Jam 2, though, should be interesting with LeBron. I wonder if MJ would make an appearance again as like a mentor character.
They should do that.
Yeah.
Or he should just be like, he should say, I don't play defense or some bullshit like that and just walk off.
Yeah. It'll be interesting, though, because this is so timeless and such a classic. I think Space Jam 2 has a lot of potential to just be a total flop and almost ruin Space Jam or make people appreciate Space Jam even more.
Well, it's just like, I mean, is it going to be target audience kids now, or is it going to be target audience
Nostalgia.
Nostalgia.
That's a great point.
That needs to be two different movies, if so. But I guess I mean you could kind of work both in there for the '90s kids who now have kids of their own. I just wonder, like, do kids? I don't even know. I mean, I have nieces and a couple. I got a couple nieces and some nephews, but I don't know if they watch Looney Tunes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
Looney Tunes might not be in the lexicon anymore for
Well, it's
kids.
back. They brought it back. They have like Wabbit on Cartoon Network, which they revitalize the Looney Tunes characters, and they just basically what they did with the Disney characters, the Fab Five. When they redesigned Mickey, they made him look a little more edgier. They have brand new cartoons. The same thing with the Looney Tunes characters. So they're doing that whole thing. So it's not exactly the same, but it's like an update, and it's a decent update.
Yeah. I mean, even then, it's like, I wonder if maybe doing a little bit older, like maybe if, I'm not sure what the target age group for Looney Tunes, I mean, not for Looney Tunes, for Space Jam was, I would say like 10-ish. Maybe like 5 to 10 when it came out. I don't really know. Because it bounces between humor where I think both groups can get it. Maybe being like 10 to 12 would be a better idea for a sequel. I don't know.
If you were live in the 90s, you had a Looney Tunes basketball T-shirt or something like that, where it was a Tasmanian Devil up against Bugs Bunny's back, or a Daffy and him, any kind of NBA thing. You know you did. Don't try and lie.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. You probably wore a white T-shirt underneath it too when you went to school. So,
you guys have any more thoughts on Space Jam?
I just want to say thank you so much for letting me join you on this episode. It's been a pleasure.
It had to be you.
And an honor.
Who else we going to talk Looney Tunes with, you know?
I know.
Yeah, really.
I would hope you would talk to me.
Max, where can the good people find us?
You could find us. You can find us getting our basketball Jones down by the court or at thecriticalbreakdown.com. You can find me having a fashion show with Daffy Duck at Max Rivera Film on Twitter.
You can find me wrestling Michael Jordan's basketball shorts away from his bulldog Charles at breakdown_Scott.
And you can find me at Moron Mountain at www.joshuarivera.com, and I will help you find that wonderful house that could possibly be close to the Moron Mountain, so you don't have to take a spaceship.
A Moron Mountain view. Our email is thecriticalbreakdownpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on Space Jam. Let us know if you think it holds up. Let us know if you went to the theaters and saw it again when it was out in November or December.
Yeah. Let us know if you think the sequel is going to be dope.
Yeah. Be sure to give us a rating and a review on iTunes and the Google Play Store and wherever you're listening to this, because that helps us out a lot. And you love the podcast, so just let us know.
Yeah. Our music is done by Jason Brown.
Our artwork is done by me, Josh Rivera. And that's all, folks.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky. I think
Next week on the Critical Breakdown,
we're watching I Know What You Did Last Summer,
starring Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. and her boobs.
And rated 36% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Let's check that real quick.
I believe I can fly. I believe I can fly.